So we got some big announcements in the last few days, right? Canelo signs a 3-fight deal with PBC. Now look, this is potentially going to lead him into some fights, man, that people have been wanting forever. Canelo is the face of the sport. He's the cash cow, man. He's out there doing everything. You know, with that, you're going to generate a lot of money, a lot of buzz. There's going to be a lot going on. But one of the other things that you're going to get is you're going to get people who constantly criticize what you do. Now, sometimes that's going to be warranted, right? I mean, everything you do is not going to be perfect. Every choice you make is not going to be great. There's going to be people out there that are going to call you out for that. That's correct. I mean, that's what's supposed to happen. There's supposed to be people who keep you honest, so to speak, right? There's supposed to be people who are being honest about what they see in the sport. That's the role of the media. You know, you hope that fans are going to be the same type of way. It doesn't always work out that way, but it's something that needs to be done, and it is done. You know, but then you get the flip side of that criticism, right? And the flip side is just the straight up stone cold hardcore haters, man. There's just people that it does not matter what you do. You know, Canelo could go out there and walk on water. They'll say the man couldn't afford a boat, right? I mean, it's just that simple. So he comes over to PBC. He signs this 3-fight deal. We've already got people criticizing at what point in his career he's done it, who's he going to fight next. And now we're getting people who are criticizing his first fight, okay? Understandably so. Coming in, we see him sign this deal, and everybody immediately starts talking about how he's going to fight Charlo. Man, of course we assumed this was going to be Jermall Charlo, right? The guy at 160 pounds, he's going to be moving up to 168. That's the natural progression. All of a sudden, man, we get the curveball thrown on us at the last moment, and we find out it's Jermell, right? We find out it's the brother down at 154 pounds who's going to be jumping up to 2 weight classes, challenging at 168. Undisputed versus undisputed. Dude, it was funny. I remember when Jermell mentioned this a little while back at, it was an interview or a press conference or something. He's like, I don't understand why we're not doing undisputed versus undisputed. We can do this and that. I don't think a lot of people took it seriously at the time, myself included. Okay? Number one, I thought, dude, all we hear is Canelo talking about Bivol. All we hear is Canelo talking about he wants that rematch with Bivol. We know that there's a lot of big money fights out there for him as well. Obviously, people are talking about Benavidez. Dude, supposedly Benavidez, his camp just offered Canelo $45 million for the fight. Didn't even get a response, and we end up seeing how the PBC deal ends up coming through. But there's a lot of big name guys. Anybody, anywhere who's able to get the fight with Canelo is going to want it because he's the biggest guy in the sport. So when I hear the 154-pound champ talking about how they want to make undisputed versus undisputed at 168, it's like, not only does Canelo have every opportunity and option in the book as far as who he wants to fight or where he wants to fight or anything like that, a lot of big money name out there. He's a guy who definitely appears to be interested in legacy. I just didn't think it was legit that we were gonna see this fight. That's number one from the business aspect. And then number two was, I mean, let's be honest with each other. We're talking about a guy jumping up 2 weight classes fighting Canelo. And I'll be the first to admit, I've got nothing but respect for the skills that Charlo brings to the table. Right? The man is a highly talented fighter. You do not get to undisputed by being a bum. You don't get to undisputed at 154 pounds by cherry picking and picking and choosing, right? Eventually, man, the rubber has to meet the road, and you have to go out there and you have to fight some of the best people that you can find if you want to strap all 4 of those belts around your waist. Now, when we're talking about this fight specifically, September 30th in Las Vegas, we get these 2 men fighting, right? What exactly is it going to look like? Now, some of my first thoughts going through this are, one, even though we expected it to be Jermall Charlo versus Canelo, this may actually be the better fight because Jermall has been incredibly inactive, right? What's it been, almost 3 years out of the ring? So even though he's the naturally bigger guy, he's been fighting at 160 pounds longer. It may be easier for him to move up to 168. Who knows what he actually looks like right now as far as being in boxing shape? 3 years is a long time, man. And even if he is in shape, let's say this dude is just prime. He's running 15 miles a day at incredible pace. He's working 15 rounds in the gym on the bag, and he's sparring, and he's doing everything. Let's just say that was the case. Ring rust is a real thing. And you're talking about going in there, moving up a weight class and going in there against Canelo. Is this going to be your best opportunity to win this fight? On the flip side, we got his brother Jermell, who's been very active, unified the belts at 154 pounds. He's defeated every man he stepped into the ring with. I didn't win every fight, but he's defeated every man that he stepped into the ring with due to rematches. And he's been looking good. He's been continuing to get better. So as much as I think that he's going to have some problems, and I'll break those down in a minute, but as much as I think he's going to have some problems in this fight, it may actually end up being a better, more competitive contest with him than his brother. But here's the thing, okay? Let's think about this for a second. Let's think about Jermell Charlo what he brings to the table and how it's going to match up. Now, when I heard about this fight, I went back, watched like a little bit of tape just because I wanted to make sure that I was on point when I was saying things here and I wasn't remembering things incorrectly or being a little bit rusty with my analysis. But I went back and I saw two things. I watched two things. Well, three fights, but two fighters. I watched both of the fights against Castaño and I watched the first fight against Tony Harrison. Okay? Because those were the guys that Jermall Charlo had trouble with. Right? Those were the fight where against the first fight against Harrison, he came up short and lost. First fight against Castaño, he ends up getting a draw. Anytime it's a draw, it's going to be up for debate, right? It's going to be disputable. There's a lot of people who think Charlo should have won it. There is a lot of people who think Castaño should have walked away with that fight. That's why we end up getting the rematch. Charlo switches gears, does things a lot better, ends up getting the stoppage victory, looks very good in it. But why did he have trouble at first? Easy. He couldn't control the range. He was getting bullied in a way. He was consistent. I mean, not like aggressively out of control or anything, but he was getting backed up in that fight. It didn't take very long. What was it, second round, maybe third round? He was getting backed up in that fight, and Castaño had him up against the ropes, man. And you had a guy who's got very good combination punching in Castaño. He cuts off the ring well. He was backing Charlo up against the ropes. He was getting inside, able to do his best work at that very short, tight inside to slightly mid-range distance where Charlo doesn't shine. Charlo's better at distance. And he was just able to go in there and make it happen, man. He was able to land a lot of shots, some good left hooks. Now, early in that fight, I think it was the second round, Charlo caught him with a nasty counter left hook, wobbled him, couldn't drop him, but he wobbled him, tried to follow up and finish, couldn't do it. But he didn't look good in that fight, man. Castaño was able to come out there and he was able to exploit a flaw, and that flaw was the ability to apply pressure and having a high work rate gave Charlo some issues. Okay, Charlo was trying to be very technical. He's trying to be a sniper. He's trying to pick and choose his position in his shots. Great hand speed, really good power, right? You can tell that he's able to see good things in there when he's calm, so he's able to pick those shots well. Unfortunately for him, it wasn't enough. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to use those skills to repel all the aggression and push it back and keep the fight where he wanted to be. He ends up getting a draw. Comes back in the rematch, completely switches it up, does all of those things that we just said, right? Controlled the gap, used the jab way more. He was more aggressive, which didn't allow Castaño to come in. He wasn't allowing himself to be bullied and backed up. He wasn't allowing Castaño to cut the ring off on him. He was moving well. All of the flaws that he had in that first fight, dude, he came out and corrected them. You can't praise a man more than that. I mean, think about it. You come out and do something, all these people critique you on it. You come out and fix basically all of those problems. Come right back out. No tune-up fight. We're not warming up. We're not fighting bums and school teachers and tomato cans and retired construction workers. We're going right back out against the same guy. We're fixing all of those problems, and we're getting the work done. So my hat's off to the man. That's one of the most impressive things you can do, especially at this point in your career when you're a seasoned professional, you've been boxing forever, you've been around the sport, you've been doing all of these things, to go in and to be receptive enough to the criticism that you hear, to be receptive enough to what your trainer's telling you, to be able to correct those flaws and make that change. Phenomenal stuff. Because here's the thing, that's the same type of trouble that he's going to run into with Canelo. Now, when he was fighting Harrison beat him by having such an educated left hand. He was able to control the gap with the jab. He was able to completely throw off Charlo's rhythm. He was the one who had Charlo pursuing him. He was constantly turning him. He was setting up counter shots. Charlo was just never really able to figure him out. It was like he was so slick and I don't want to necessarily use the term slippery, but he was crafty and stuff, right? He was able to throw Charlo's game off with that. That's not the game that Canelo's bringing to the table, right? Canelo is going to be in a style that's more similar to Castaño in the sense that he wants to walk him down, he wants to come forward. Canelo is known for constantly inching forward and closing that distance without needing to throw punches, and that's huge because when he throws punches, he leaves countering opportunities. It's one of the things that we know Charlo looks for. So if he's coming forward behind that high guard, he's not throwing, he's not leaving himself opportunities to be countered. If he's able to come in there, he's able to close that distance, he's a much bigger and stronger man. I mean, I get it. Charlo's taller. He's a big dude himself, but he hasn't been competing at these higher weights. So that's what I mean by bigger in the sense that even though, I don't know, maybe that's not the right word because I would make the argument that, honestly, that Canelo's fighting above his natural weight. Maybe he should be at 154 if he wouldn't have bulked up and chased all this money and this legacy and everything else, but he's been fighting at these bigger weights for a long time. He's been in there against guys at the bigger weights who are punchers. He's been able to walk down guys like Kovalev. He's been in there with a guy like Bivol, and he was able to come forward on him. And even though he came up short in that fight, he did not back down. He was in there against Triple G 3 times. Nobody in the world is going to convince me that Jermell Charlo hits harder than Triple G. Yeah, he's got more footwork and he's got more elusivity and he's got faster hands and maybe he's even a better combination puncher. Maybe you think he's got a faster left hook or something, but he don't punch harder. He does not punch harder than a prime Triple G. That first fight when Canelo was at 160 against Triple G, man, Triple G was out there kicking like a donkey, dude. I mean, that punch that he had was ridiculous. Go back and watch some of the fights before that. Watch the way those dudes used to look when he used to land that left hook, particularly to the body. Man, something nasty. Canelo took all of those shots, man, and I get it. He's got more wear and tear on him now. He's been in a few more tussles. He's been in some more fights. So he doesn't look quite the same. He's a little bit slower. He's not quite as sharp on everything he does, right? He's had the surgeries and the knees and blah, 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 blah. All of those things are true. All of those things are true. I don't think we're getting the absolute prime Canelo in this fight. The question is whether or not we're going to need it. Will Canelo need to be at his absolute prime to win this fight? Dude, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be fascinating, particularly early, right? My gut 100% tells me right now as I sit here that Canelo's going to come out with this one. The Canelo's going to come out with the victory, okay? Early in the fight is when he's going to see his most trouble. Early in the fight when Charlo is just, when he's fresh, when he's on point, when the man with the younger legs, with the faster hands, the way he's going to be able to move around, he's longer, he's got a jab. When he decides to use it, the jab's good. When he decides to use it, man, it's long, it's like a spear. He pops it out there, he's going to try to keep distance. It'll be interesting to see how that develops. I think that's where he'll see his success. You know, Canelo will probably play it slow in the first few rounds, try to take it a little bit later, like we've seen him do so many times, and start to do his best work at that point. So, man, good fight. Looking forward to seeing it. I don't know. I have no idea what the odds are yet. I'm sure Canelo's the favorite. He should be. And off the top of my head, like I said, I think he's going to be able to come out with the victory, and I think he'll particularly be able to impose his will and shine in the middle to late rounds. But, dude, fights don't happen on paper. Fights don't happen based off of past performances and resume. Fights happen because fights are supposed to happen. Fights happen because we need to see two men get into the ring and decide and figure out who is the best man on that night. That's what we're going to see here, man. Should be a fascinating fight. So let me know what you guys think. Are you excited to see this one? Who do you think Canelo's going to be getting in his next 2 fights? Or do you think this one's going to be better than if Jermall would have been getting the fight against Canelo? Do you think I'm overestimating what Canelo's going to bring because has he seen too much slippage in the recent fights? Am I underestimating what Charlo's going to bring, dude? Is the move from 154 to 168 not even going to matter? Is this going to be a similar situation where we saw Shane Mosley jump up from 135 to 147 and beat Oscar De La Hoya? Let me know what you guys think.